There is power in the words we speak. Every day, people use thousands of words without realizing that their words are either building their future or limiting it. Faith is not merely believing in the heart. It is also declaring with the mouth what God has promised. Mountains do not move because of fear-filled conversations. Chains do not break because of doubt-filled confessions. Healing, freedom, restoration, and breakthrough begin when faith rises and speaks. When circumstances seem impossible, faith does not repeat the problem, it declares the promise. Today, we will discover how faith-filled words can heal wounded hearts, break strongholds, release God's power, and move mountains that stand in the way of our destiny. No matter what challenge you face, your confession can become the bridge between God's promises and your reality. The words we speak every day are far more powerful than many people realize. They are not simply sounds that disappear into the air. They reveal what is in our hearts and influence the direction of our lives. Every conversation, every declaration, and every statement we make has the potential to shape our attitudes, our expectations, and even the way we respond to life's challenges. This is why faith-filled words are so important. They help us focus on what is possible through God's power rather than what seems impossible through human limitations. Many people unknowingly speak defeat over their lives. When difficulties arise, they immediately begin saying things such as, "Nothing ever works out for me," "I will never get through this," or "Things are only getting worse." Although these statements may seem harmless, they reinforce negative expectations and create an atmosphere of discouragement. Over time, such words can weaken confidence, drain hope, and make obstacles appear larger than they really are. Faith operates differently. Faith does not deny the existence of challenges, but it refuses to allow challenges to have the final word. Faith acknowledges the problem while confidently believing that God is greater than the problem. Instead of speaking defeat, faith speaks possibility. Instead of magnifying obstacles, faith magnifies God's ability to overcome them. This kind of confession transforms the way we see our circumstances. It shifts our focus away from fear and places it firmly on God's promises. Think about a farmer planting seeds in a field. The harvest that appears later is directly connected to the seeds that were planted earlier. In the same way, our words are like seeds planted into the soil of our lives. Every positive, faith-filled declaration plants seeds of hope, courage, and expectation. Over time, those seeds begin to grow. They influence our thinking, strengthen our confidence, and help us remain steadfast during difficult seasons. There will be moments when circumstances seem to contradict what you are believing for. There may be days when answers seem delayed, when challenges appear overwhelming, or when disappointment tries to take hold of your heart. During those moments, your confession becomes incredibly important. It is easy to speak words of faith when everything is going well. The true test comes when you continue speaking faith even when you cannot yet see the results. Faith-filled words remind us that God is still working behind the scenes. They remind us that no obstacle is too great, no situation is beyond restoration, and no challenge is impossible for Him. Every time you choose to speak hope instead of despair, courage instead of fear, and victory instead of defeat, you are strengthening your faith and renewing your perspective. The direction of your life is often influenced by the words you consistently speak. If you want to walk in greater peace, greater confidence, and greater expectation, begin by examining your confession. Choose words that align with faith rather than fear. Let your speech reflect trust rather than doubt. As you continue speaking God's promises over your life, your outlook will begin to change, your faith will grow stronger, and you will discover the incredible power of words that are rooted in faith. One of the greatest challenges people face is learning how to maintain faith when their circumstances seem unchanged. It is natural to want visible evidence before believing that improvement is taking place. Many people wait until they feel stronger, healthier, or more hopeful before they begin speaking positively. However, faith works in the opposite direction. Faith chooses to speak healing, restoration, and hope even before any physical evidence appears. It is a confident trust that God is at work even when the results are not yet visible. There are moments in life when pain, disappointment, stress, and uncertainty seem overwhelming. During these seasons, negative thoughts often become louder than hopeful ones. Fear may whisper that nothing will ever change. Doubt may suggest that healing is impossible. Discouragement may try to convince you that your situation is permanent. If those voices are allowed to dominate your thinking, they can drain your strength and weaken your confidence. This is why your confession becomes so important. What you repeatedly speak influences what you repeatedly believe. Healing is not limited to the physical body. Many people carry wounds in their hearts caused by rejection, betrayal, failure, grief, or disappointment. These invisible wounds can affect relationships, emotions, and even one's sense of purpose. Just as the body needs healing from sickness, the heart needs healing from pain. Faith-filled words become powerful tools in this process. Instead of continually repeating what hurt you, begin declaring that restoration is possible. Instead of focusing solely on the damage, focus on the possibility of renewal and recovery. Speaking healing does not mean pretending that pain does not exist. It means refusing to allow pain to define your future. It means acknowledging the struggle while believing that God's power is greater than the struggle. Faith does not ignore reality. It looks beyond present circumstances and trusts in a greater outcome. Even when symptoms remain, even when emotions feel heavy, and even when progress seems slow, faith continues to speak life. Words have a remarkable ability to shape the atmosphere around us. A person who constantly speaks hopelessness often becomes trapped in discouragement. In contrast, someone who consistently speaks faith creates an atmosphere where hope can flourish. Hope brings strength. Hope inspires perseverance. Hope gives people the courage to keep moving forward when everything around them says they should give up. There may be times when healing appears delayed. During those moments, the temptation to quit believing can become strong. Yet some of the greatest victories occur when people refuse to surrender their faith. They continue declaring peace in the middle of anxiety. They continue declaring strength in moments of weakness. They continue declaring restoration when circumstances suggest otherwise. Their confidence is not based on what they see, but on who God is. Every faith-filled declaration is a reminder that your story is not finished. Every word of hope pushes back against despair. Every confession of healing strengthens your spirit and renews your expectation. While circumstances may take time to change, faith keeps the heart anchored in hope. When you choose to speak healing before you see it, you are making a powerful statement that your confidence is not in your circumstances, but in God's ability to bring restoration, renewal, and breakthrough in His perfect time. Many of the battles people face are not always visible. Some struggles take place deep within the mind and heart. Fear, anxiety, guilt, shame, insecurity, and hopelessness can quietly influence the way a person thinks, feels, and lives. These invisible chains can be just as limiting as physical obstacles because they affect confidence, peace, and the ability to move forward. While these struggles may seem powerful, they do not have to control your life. Faith-filled declarations can become a powerful weapon against every negative voice that seeks to hold you back. Every day, countless thoughts pass through the mind. Some are encouraging and uplifting, while others are destructive and discouraging. Negative thoughts often arrive disguised as facts. They whisper things like, "You are not good enough," "You will never succeed," "Nothing will ever change," or "You have failed too many times." When these thoughts are repeated often enough, they begin to feel true. Eventually, people may start speaking these lies aloud, reinforcing the very chains that are keeping them trapped. This is why faith-filled confession is so important. Faith challenges every lie with truth. It refuses to allow fear, doubt, or insecurity to have the final word. Instead of agreeing with negative thoughts, faith chooses to agree with God's promises. When fear says that the future is hopeless, faith declares that God is still working. When guilt says that your mistakes define you, faith declares that grace is greater than failure. When weakness says that you cannot continue, faith declares that strength will be provided for the journey ahead. Words have tremendous power because they influence the direction of our thinking. The more we repeat something, the more deeply it becomes rooted in our minds. This principle works both positively and negatively. Repeated words of fear strengthen fear. Repeated words of doubt strengthen doubt. In the same way, repeated declarations of faith strengthen faith. Every time you speak truth, you are training your mind to focus on hope rather than despair. Breaking chains often begins with changing what you say. A person who constantly speaks defeat will struggle to walk in victory. But a person who consistently speaks life begins to see circumstances differently. Their perspective changes. Their confidence grows. Their ability to endure challenges increases. They are no longer controlled by the voices of fear because they have learned to replace those voices with words of faith. This does not mean that difficulties instantly disappear. Challenges may still exist, and battles may still need to be fought. However, faith-filled declarations change the atmosphere of the battle. Instead of approaching difficulties with panic and discouragement, you approach them with confidence and expectation. You begin to believe that obstacles can be overcome and that breakthrough is possible. Every declaration of truth weakens the influence of fear. Every word of faith pushes back against doubt. Every confession of hope reminds you that your circumstances do not have the authority to determine your future. The chains of discouragement, insecurity, and hopelessness lose their power when they are confronted by unwavering faith. No matter how long a struggle has existed, it does not have to remain. Freedom begins when you stop repeating the lies that have held you captive and start declaring the truth that brings life. As faith fills your words, it will strengthen your heart, renew your mind, and help you walk in the freedom and victory that God desires for your life. One of the most common habits people develop during difficult seasons is talking constantly about their problems. When challenges arise, it is natural to focus on what is wrong, what is missing, and what seems impossible. Conversations become centered on obstacles, disappointments, delays, and frustrations. While there is nothing wrong with acknowledging reality, there is a difference between recognizing a problem and allowing that problem to dominate every thought and every word. Faith teaches us to shift our focus from constantly discussing the mountain to confidently speaking to the mountain. Mountains come in many forms. For some people, the mountain may be financial pressure that seems impossible to overcome. For others, it may be a broken relationship, a health challenge, a season of uncertainty, or a dream that appears delayed. These mountains often seem massive when viewed through the eyes of fear. The larger they appear, the easier it becomes to feel discouraged and powerless. Many people spend years describing the size of their mountain without ever exercising the faith needed to confront it. Faith approaches obstacles differently. Instead of being intimidated by the size of the challenge, faith focuses on the greatness of God. It understands that no mountain is greater than His power. While fear magnifies the obstacle, faith magnifies the one who is able to remove it. This shift in perspective changes everything. The problem may remain the same, but your confidence begins to grow because your attention is no longer fixed solely on the difficulty. Speaking to the mountain means declaring God's promises over situations that appear impossible. It means refusing to allow fear and doubt to control the conversation. When financial struggles arise, faith declares that provision is possible. When uncertainty surrounds the future, faith declares that guidance will come. When relationships seem broken, faith declares that restoration is still within reach. These declarations are not based on wishful thinking. They are expressions of confidence that God is able to accomplish what seems impossible. There are moments when mountains appear unmovable. Days may pass without visible progress. Answers may seem delayed, and circumstances may remain unchanged. During those times, the temptation to give up becomes very real. Many people lose heart because they focus only on what they can see. Faith, however, chooses to look beyond present circumstances. It continues speaking hope even when evidence is limited. It continues believing even when the path forward is unclear. The words we speak during difficult seasons reveal where our trust is placed. If our speech is dominated by fear, worry, and defeat, it becomes difficult to maintain confidence. But when our words are filled with faith, they strengthen our hearts and remind us that God is still in control. Faith-filled declarations do not deny the existence of obstacles. They simply refuse to give those obstacles the final authority. Every mountain that stands before you is an opportunity to trust God more deeply. Instead of spending all your energy explaining how difficult your situation is, begin declaring what God can do. Speak peace in the middle of chaos. Speak courage in the middle of uncertainty. Speak victory in the middle of the battle. As you continue to fill your words with faith, you will discover that mountains lose their power to intimidate. What once seemed impossible begins to look different because your confidence is no longer based on the size of the obstacle, but on the greatness of God. When faith becomes your voice, mountains are no longer barriers to your future. They become opportunities for God to display His power and faithfulness. Faith becomes most powerful when it is firmly anchored in God's promises rather than in changing circumstances. Many people allow their confidence to rise and fall based on what they see happening around them. When things are going well, they feel hopeful and encouraged. When challenges appear, their confidence begins to weaken. However, true faith is not built upon emotions, circumstances, or visible evidence. It is built upon the unchanging truth of God's Word. This is why aligning your confession with God's promises is so important. When your words agree with what God has spoken, your faith gains strength and stability regardless of what is happening around you. Life is full of situations that test belief. Unexpected problems can arise without warning. Delays may occur when answers seem urgently needed. Disappointments can challenge even the strongest individuals. During these moments, many voices compete for our attention. Fear tries to convince us that nothing will improve. Doubt questions whether change is possible. Worry fills the mind with endless negative scenarios. If we listen to these voices long enough, they begin to influence our speech. Eventually, we may find ourselves repeating the very fears that are trying to weaken our faith. This is why it is essential to return continually to God's promises. His promises provide a solid foundation when everything else feels uncertain. They remind us that His character does not change and that His faithfulness remains constant. When circumstances shift, His truth remains the same. When emotions fluctuate, His promises remain dependable. By filling our hearts with His Word, we develop the ability to speak with confidence even during difficult seasons. Aligning your confession with God's promises means choosing to speak what He says rather than what fear says. It means allowing His truth to become the language of your daily life. Instead of constantly declaring defeat, you declare hope. Instead of speaking discouragement, you speak confidence. Instead of focusing entirely on the problem, you focus on the promise. This shift may seem simple, but it has a profound impact on the way you think and respond to challenges. The words we repeat consistently eventually shape our mindset. If we continually speak fear, fear grows stronger. If we continually speak doubt, doubt gains influence. In the same way, when we repeatedly declare God's promises, faith begins to grow. Our perspective changes. We become less controlled by circumstances and more confident in God's ability to work through them. His promises begin to influence our decisions, our attitudes, and our expectations. There will be times when circumstances seem to contradict what you are believing. You may not immediately see the fulfillment of what has been promised. During those moments, it is important to remember that faith is often tested before it is rewarded. The delay of an answer does not mean the absence of God's activity. He may be working in ways that are not yet visible. Continuing to confess His promises keeps your heart anchored in hope while you wait. As you consistently align your words with God's truth, you create an atmosphere where faith can flourish. Your confidence becomes rooted in something greater than temporary circumstances. You begin to trust not in what you can see, but in the faithfulness of the one who made the promise. Over time, this kind of confession strengthens your spirit, renews your mind, and helps you remain steadfast through every challenge. When God's promises become the foundation of your words, your faith becomes stronger, your hope becomes deeper, and your expectation begins to rise because you know that His word can always be trusted. One of the greatest challenges in the life of faith is remaining consistent when answers seem delayed. It is often easy to speak words of confidence when everything is going well and progress is visible. However, true faith is revealed during the waiting season. It is revealed when prayers have been offered, promises have been claimed, and yet circumstances appear unchanged. In those moments, many people become discouraged and begin to question whether their declarations matter. Yet some of the greatest breakthroughs in life come to those who refuse to stop believing and refuse to stop speaking words of faith. Waiting can test patience, emotions, and confidence. When days turn into weeks and weeks turn into months, it is easy to become frustrated. Doubt begins to whisper that nothing is happening. Fear suggests that the situation will never change. Discouragement tries to convince you that your efforts have been wasted. These thoughts can become powerful if they are entertained long enough. That is why it is so important to guard your confession during seasons of waiting. The words you speak while waiting often determine the strength of your faith during the journey. Faith understands that God's timing is different from human timing. People naturally want immediate results, immediate answers, and immediate solutions. However, there are times when God works through a process rather than an instant change. During that process, He is often developing character, strengthening trust, and preparing circumstances in ways that cannot yet be seen. Just because the answer has not arrived does not mean that God is absent. Just because the breakthrough has not appeared does not mean that progress is not taking place. A farmer who plants a seed does not dig it up every day to see if it is growing. He trusts the process. He continues watering, nurturing, and expecting growth even when nothing is visible above the surface. Faith works in a similar way. Every declaration of hope, every confession of trust, and every word spoken in agreement with God's promises is like watering a seed. Growth may not be immediately visible, but something is happening beneath the surface. Many people lose their breakthrough because they stop believing too soon. They allow disappointment to silence their faith. They begin speaking negatively because they have not yet seen results. Yet persistence is one of the defining characteristics of strong faith. Faith continues to declare victory even when the battle is still being fought. It continues to speak peace even when storms are raging. It continues to speak hope even when circumstances suggest otherwise. There is great power in refusing to surrender your confession. Every time you choose faith over fear, you strengthen your spiritual foundation. Every time you declare God's promises, instead of repeating your worries, you reinforce your trust in Him. These consistent declarations help protect your heart from discouragement and keep your focus on God's faithfulness rather than on temporary circumstances. No matter what challenge you are facing today, do not allow delay to convince you that nothing is happening. Continue speaking life over your situation. Continue declaring hope over your future. Continue believing that God is working even when you cannot see the evidence. The breakthrough may not arrive according to your schedule, but faith remains confident that God is faithful to His promises. The journey may be longer than expected, and the waiting season may test your endurance, but do not let your voice become silent. Keep confessing faith. Keep speaking truth. Keep declaring victory. The same God who began the work is able to complete it. As you remain steadfast and continue speaking words of faith, you position yourself to witness the breakthrough, restoration, and blessing that come to those who refuse to give up. Faith that perseveres through the waiting season often experiences the greatest victories because it has learned to trust God's promises even before they become reality.